Welcome back to your second turn. And so we're going to roll the dice again. But before we do that, we can have a look. If we press on my cards, we can have a look at the card we got on the last turn. And there it is. And then we click the button on the top, or on top left, to get back. And we can consult our My Cards anytime during the game, which means our previous cards that are saved. And these will always be saved, so we can go back into our app, and I'll show you how to do that at the very end. So now we're going to click to get our second card by clicking on the dice. And now this time we're going to get a 2, which is a body card. I'm going to click there. And again, this time you don't see any of these pop-up boxes coming up because it only happens on the very first time. Again, depending where I click in this pack, I'm going to click this time, I'm going to click in the middle. A different card will come up. Again, we have the card message that we just really read to ourselves and let whatever comes up at that moment initially. After that, we look at the questions that are underneath that help us become more specific about this card. And then finally, we relate it to our reason for playing the game, which is at the top. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back and roll dice again here. See what happens this time. And there's the dice. I'm going to roll it. It's time to get a 4. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to bring it up whenever I've rolled a 3 or a 6, and that will bring up a miracle card. So here I've rolled a 3 with the dice. And just to let you know the update I've got in this, I can't click my cards at this point because I have to go and click the miracle card number 3. So I do that, and again, I'm going to click on the pack. Up comes the card. And this card, as you can see, is slightly different the way it's structured, and it's called a miracle card because it really lets you know that you have chosen this miracle in the past, and it's want you to remember the energy of choosing a miracle. So I'll just read this card out. It says, I seem to be able to choose against love, but deep inside, I know I'm never separate from love because love is what I am. And so screenshot there. So this card says to me that even at times when I'm choosing against love, I might be feeling fearful or depressed or anxious and frustrated, that I'm never separate from love because love is what I am. And in fact, you could say at that moment that love is choosing to be depressed and fearful, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm wanting to think, well, when did I do this in my life where I was able to realize that no matter what choices I was making, I was never separate from love? And for me, what just comes to mind now, I just remember that I was in this beautiful location, and I remember waking up, and that, there was dolphins to watch and a sandy beach, and it was beautiful. And I remember thinking that, I remember feeling grumpy, and I was thinking, that's amazing that the power of my mind can be so powerful that I can choose to be grumpy on this beautiful day in this beautiful location. But what I'm saying here is I still had an awareness that I was love. I still was, the loving bit was aware of the awareness of the power of my mind to choose. And that kept me connected to love, because it wasn't that I was so much then identified with being grumpy. It was just like I was really curious and seeing what was happening in a deeper way, all the choices I could be making, and from a loving space. And so that's what came up for me when I saw that card. And here, the questions underneath are a bit more specific. And it says, remember a moment when you gave up trying to be other than who you are and just relaxed into being. So if you didn't spontaneously come up with an idea, then this first question here could have helped you then get to that moment where, so you're wanting always to remember a past moment, because this past moment, when I just talked to you about it now helps me reconnect to that moment right now and the energy of that. And I feel much more kind of realizing that I'm totally happy with my power of my mind. And I'm curious about that. So that's brought that energy back in by remembering that. And so this question here, the first question, will help you do that if you don't do that spontaneously. And then at the last question always helps us get back here to relating it. It says, does feeling this miracle memory help you with your reason for playing the game? And so playing the game with overthinking decisions. And I think for me, what it does, it brings in this curiosity that my mind, I'm thinking of, a family situation where I'm overthinking the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons, the consequences of my decision making and who it will affect. When I'm doing all that, I find now when I'm thinking about it, there's a part of my mind realizes that despite all this activity and this overthinking, that I am still connected to love and never separate from love. And so it's kind of like I'm not wanting to stop overthinking and all those things, but somehow I've taken a step back from it and I've got a kind of overview, and it's a loving overview. It's kind of like acceptance of my overthinking rather than wanting to stop it. So this is interesting. Then I would look at my playing intention and I'm going here, I want to end overthinking, but can I want to end it? Is that even possible? Maybe it's even more interesting not to end overthinking, but to look at my overthinking from this loving space. And then whether it ends or not, I've already been aware of my loving space, my loving choices, as well as this overthinking one. And it's kind of different. Something has changed. I'm not so invested in ending it anymore. And as you can see, this here card is a miracle card, and the buttons at the bottom change. And what the option I have now is not to roll a dice again. I can still see my cards. I'll just click on that just to refresh. So I can see all the previous cards I had in the game, including this one. Again, clicking the arrow in the top left to bring it back here. But to end the game here, I'm going to click on my last card. And that brings up a choice card, and we always end the game with a choice card. And I'm going to click on the choice card. Again, it comes up and I'm going to have initial reaction to the choice card. And I'm actually going to come back to this screen in a moment. I'm just going to end the video here.